Hi, this is Diana van Giersbergen from Xandria.
Hey, this is David Rivera from Ex Mortis.
What's up? This is Parker Jameson from the band Starkill.
Hail and kill, everybody. This is Ross the Boss from New York City.
Hey, this is Tim Ripper Owens, and you are listening to The Great Metal Debate.
Welcome, podcast listeners. Great Metal Debate is back with another artist interview. Today I'm joined by drummer and songwriter Sean Lang of the Canadian band 7 Year Storm. Sean, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today on the Great Metal Debate podcast.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
All right, Sean, before we get into the details of the band and music, can you give our listeners a little insight into your background and maybe how you came to pursue music as a profession?
Yeah, sure. I've been playing the drums, sort of seriously since I was a kid, about 10 years old. I kind of jumped into it. I was kind of looking for a way to, sort of look cool to all my peers, and it ended up being, something much more deep than that. And so I've been playing drums for quite a while. Got into teaching, played in a bunch of bands through high school, and ended up joining a band just after high school, sort of a progressive melodic death metal band called First Rain, which sort of kind of goes on and off over the years. We've been in the band for about 10 years now. And I always found that that while teaching drums and playing drums was always, it was kind of what I was all about, I always wanted to create music and make music, and I found that was sort of a little difficult, just being the guy who could hit the drums and make the rhythms, but not actually express my ideas musically. And so I continued to pursue drumming and teach lessons, and then I'm a drummer for hire as well, so I do recording sessions locally and online, and I play for a number of for hire situations, tribute bands and stuff like that. And I love to play drums, but ultimately for me, my goal is to create things. I just want to. I've always looked for ways to sort of, make something new that wasn't there before. And it's not like I'm trying to do anything original. I like to create. If there's something in front of me, I'll usually assemble it into something, whether it's building or drawing or whatever. And so I decided that I would start to create music that I would just, be able to jam along to at home and sort of practice and sort of write out musical ideas that would sort of test me, test my skill, and because you can write music that you can't necessarily play, and then the challenge is there on you to sort of play it afterwards. And so it began as sort of that, and I was able to use it as a teaching tool, and ultimately turned into the project that we're talking about now.
That's very interesting, because I've seen some of your teaching videos, and as someone who isn't a musician, I'm very impressed with those. And it's interesting to hear you speak about that tension between the teaching aspect and the creative aspect. Could you speak a little more about that, about maybe how that creative element comes out?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I'm teaching, usually teaching is obviously enjoyable to me, because whenever I find something new, I like to share it with people. And what I'll usually end up doing is teach. I'll be teaching people what the lesson material is, but I'll also, end up wanting to share sort of what it is that I've been sort of going through as well, because I'm excited about it. And that usually ends up coming through with sort of either the music that I'm going through or the music that I'm writing. And I mean, teaching doesn't necessarily excite me on its own, but I love to sort of, I don't know, I love to just share what is new and exciting to me. So sometimes it's an idea, sometimes it's a song, sometimes it can be sort of any number of things.
Sure. And so following the teaching, First Rain, and other projects, how did this particular project come about?
Well, ever since high school, when I had first downloaded, I think, a cracked version of Fruity Loops, if anyone remembers that program, I'd be just basically sequencing these awful little MIDI songs at home, just because, like I said, if I found a way to sort of create something, I really dig that. And so I'd be sequencing these stupid little awful sounding, like Nintendo type guitar riffs with like awful sounding drums and stuff like that.
Right.
And it would slowly get better and slowly get better. And then eventually I discovered software called Reason, and I got a little bit more serious, and suddenly my guitar sounds were a little bit better, my drum sounds were quite a bit better, and suddenly there's synths and stuff like that. And the music I was listening to was a little bit more interesting, and I was slowly understanding music a little bit more, and sort of finding ways to sort of convert the ideas in my head into something tangible that you could actually hear, and kind of went on from there. And so probably, how long have I been doing it now? I've probably been sequencing music for, over 12 years now. So I've discovered years ago now how to accurately sort of get my ideas out, and so that's how it started. So I'd have all these MIDI songs and stuff that people could hear that the music was there and the ideas were there, and just like, oh, that sounds really cool. It's too bad that it just sounds like Nintendo, but the songs are really neat. And I'd always be like, oh, that's sort of a compliment, but that's sort of like a backhanded compliment. Yeah, it's cool, but it sounds stupid, sort of thing, right? And so that's sort of how I got into it, anyway.
Right. And so, tell me how you joined up with the other musicians who ended up actually performing on this EP, the album.
Yeah, well, the other musicians, a guy named Brent McKenzie, who's a great bassist who has played, he played for a band that used to be on Galley Records called Soulscar. I used to be a big fan of them when I was in high school, and I would see them play. And then we've also got Dean Lamb from Artspire, which I'm sure many people have heard of now. And Dean and I actually went to high school together and grew up listening to music and sort of dissecting like Planet X riffs and different parts of Dream Theater, and just we wasted so many hours just sitting around listening to the music and being like, what is that? Is that 7/8? And then does that go to 13/16? And we sort of just we kind of developed our musical ears together. So it was kind of fun when Artspire ended up getting really big, and he moved a couple cities away, but we always kept in touch. And when we were talking, and I sort of let him know that I'm kind of getting a little bit more serious with the music, and he expressed some interest in being a part of it. And we've always been friends, so it was very easy to just sort of make that happen. A friend of mine has a pretty decent little home studio, and so he also wanted to be a part of it as well, because he had worked with First Rain. He actually produced the most recent First Rain album, and so he basically said, I think you should do something serious with this. And I said, do you want to make it happen? And so he engineered it. He was the one who actually ended up getting Brent McKenzie, the bassist, on board, because they've been longtime friends. And then we brought Dean in, and the rest is Aion I.
How long did that project take to come to fruition from that initial idea to the point in which you had a recorded album?
It's taken a while. I mean, the drums were probably tracked 2.5 years ago, and then life just sort of got in the way. It was initially supposed to be a full-length album, so there are drums and bass already tracked for another 6 songs. But I decided that I was going to split it into 2 EPs just to get it out quicker, because at that point it had been almost 2 years, and we weren't really any closer to being done. So I said, well, why don't we just put this into 1 EP? It'll be easier to get it completed, and then we'll release a second EP afterwards. And a lot of people seem to be splitting up their music into smaller, digestible chunks lately. And so I figured that's probably the right way to go here. And we needed a little bit of startup cash to sort of get the album mixed properly and mastered, and album artwork and some correct promo and publishing and stuff. And so I ended up doing a little Indiegogo crowdfunding campaign, just because at this point I had probably 2 years worth of people saying, so you said you're recording it, what's happening? And so I said, listen guys, I started, it's still going, it's probably going to be a while. If you want to make it happen any quicker, here's this crowdfunding campaign, see what you can do. And I think over 100 people came together and raised a couple $1,000 and basically got me everything I needed to get the album out, and which was really, really awesome just to sort of see the community come together. Because I mean, you know, most of these people knew me, but I had never actually released any actual music. They just heard sort of the goofy MIDI stuff that I drummed along to. So it was really interesting that people basically said, you know, like, we believe in what you're doing, and so that was pretty humbling. I was very amazed at that.
And so on this album, you did go an instrumental route without adding any vocals. Can you tell me about the thought process behind that? Yeah,
I mean, I've always had that debate with certain people. You know, some people don't really think that, you know, instrumental music is really worth listening to. You got to have vocals. You got to have, you know, that human connection. But I've heard some pretty amazing instrumental music where that human connection is made just from the vibe and the atmosphere, and you know, you can let the lead guitar do the talking. If it's not over the top cheesy, or it's not, you know, basically the lead instrumentation can be the vocal if you approach it the right way and if you listen to it the right way. And that's sort of what my thinking was. And I wanted to let the songs sort of stand on their own, and sort of, you know, you really just listen to the music itself. Because I find a lot of music, there's a lot of really, really interesting stuff going on in the background, but you're so focused on the vocals you don't really hear it. I mean, case in point, the newest Tesseract album, I think it's the newest one, Altered State, they released it in 2 discs, one with vocals and one without. And I was listening to the one with vocals, and I was liking it, but I wasn't really completely, you know, enthralled, and sort of, you know, I wasn't getting into it. And then I realized that there was a second disc with no vocals. And that has been on repeat for the last couple of weeks for me, because it's got this atmosphere that when the vocals are there, you don't really get into it as much. For me, anyway, this is totally personal. And then there are some bands where if there was no vocals, I don't think I'd be able to listen to it. So it really goes both ways. But I just wanted to create more of a vibe and an atmosphere, and let the music sort of, you know, give you stuff to think about, and, you know, imagine what was going on when, you know, as the music's playing or something.
That's interesting. A lot of symphonic bands do that as well. Will release a separate album that's just the music without the vocals. So interesting your take on that.
Yeah.
Let's talk more about this new EP, Aion I, just released this week as we record this. I have had a chance to hear it, and I'm very impressed. I love Nazca lines in particular. Are you pleased with the result, and what feedback have you received from the folks who have heard it so far?
Yeah, I'm really pleased. I mean, most of these songs had been written in some form, maybe not in their complete form, but in some form for 3, maybe even 4 years for some of them. So I've been hearing the songs for so long that I'd I'd lost any sort of perspective, put it that way. So it's been nice that the reviews have been very, very positive. It's kind of surprised me because, you know, when you decide to release something, you're basically saying, I think this is good enough. And so there's always that little thing inside you saying, shoot, I hope I was right about this. And all the reviews have been overwhelmingly positive, which has been very, very nice, because there's, you know, I've been very, very happy with it. I'm very happy with how the mix turned out, and all the amazing guitar work and bass work that Dean and Brent did, and I think I'm still more or less happy with my drum parts, although I recorded them 2.5 years ago. So even now, I hear them and I'm like, I could have done this, I could have done that, and I'm going to start doing some drum clinics coming up soon. And when I play to the songs now, I find new things that I'm like, I wish I would have done that. But I mean, it's recorded. It is what it is, and I'm not going to sweat it.
Sure. And you have produced some video to help promote the EP. Tell me about that production.
I got this amazing guy named Kyle Trinke at Bravery Studios, who's actually on staff at Drumeo, and I basically approached him and said, "You've done a couple cool videos. Here's sort of my vision. Here's my budget. I'd like to do 2 videos, but one if that's all it comes to. What do you think? You can do whatever you want." And I think when I said you can do whatever you want, his eyes lit up, and it was sort of go time from then on. So So we got some fog machines and some cool lights and lasers, and sort of blacked out the background, and I'm really happy that we basically just set up the drums and the lights, and we went through each song probably 12 or 15 times with different camera angles, and it was definitely weird for me because I wasn't actually performing the song. I mean, I was playing along to the songs as best as I could remember that I recorded them. But in certain takes, you can see that I'm not necessarily playing exactly what is written or what you're hearing. So some people on YouTube are like, you totally forgot to switch your snares off there and stuff like that. But I think it turned out really good. I was blown away. That guy did a great job, and it's definitely helped to get the word out about the project, because I mean it's an all drummer music video basically. It's a glorified playthrough. That's for drummers. That's like no one else. The drummers don't want to see anyone else play anyway. They just want to watch the drummer. So to me, I was like, this is awesome.
Well, as a layperson, again, I thought it looked really cool, and I think it was very well made, and set you up in a nice way to promote your product there. That's
exactly what I wanted.
You already referred to the second EP, Aion II, that you have recorded. Talk to me a little bit about your plans to release that as a follow-up.
Yeah, in some of the press says 2015, and that's definitely something that I would like to do. Although with the speed of this release, I'm thinking it probably won't see the light of day until 2016. But Aion II, I ended up leaving the songs on that I had written more recently, so they actually have a little bit of a different feel to them, which I'm happy about. But I'm also going to try to make sure that they're not too far apart from Aion I, because part 1 and part 2, you want the follow up to sort of follow up and not sort of reintroduce completely new sounds and ideas. But Aion II is definitely more technical and still incredibly progressive, probably more progressive, but definitely
wow.
a lot more rhythmically technical, and it's going to be a lot more challenging for Dean in the guitar department. He's already said a few of the riffs. He's like, could we maybe change a few notes, because I don't think that my fingers will do that. Like, yeah, I'll trust you to handle it. You'll make it sound good. So
I have to ask, John, are there any plans to perform any of this live, perhaps?
As a band, probably
yes.
not anytime soon. I mean, I'm going to be performing in a drumming capacity for a couple of clinics coming up. But as a band, there would need to be significant demand and possible backing in order to make that happen, because it's very technical and demanding music, and to sort of get a band together, I would need to have some sort of incentive for people to do that. And right now, I crowdfunded the release, and so I would never, like, as a professional musician myself, I would never, ever want to, lure people on board saying, this might turn into something. I'd want to say, this is what you're getting paid. Here you go. So until I can get to that point, out of respect, no official plans to perform live.
Well, hopefully there'll be sufficient response to make that a reality.
Yeah, that's down the road. That would be nice.
Sean, you're obviously a very skilled drummer. Do you have any words of advice or encouragement for kids who are maybe just getting into drumming right now?
Yeah, definitely. Speaking from experience, over the last few years, I've started listening to and playing a lot of different genres of music, and that has made me so much better of a player than anything I could have done and I could have really thought of. A lot of young players will pigeonhole themselves, and I want to be a rock drummer, I want to be a metal drummer, I want to be a punk drummer, whatever. That's cool, but if that's all you're doing, that's all you're going to do, and you're going to be decent at that, but you're not going to be good at anything else. Whereas if you want to, say, learn a good shuffle, or you want to play a good linear gospel beat or something, I guarantee that will bleed through into your rock drumming and your metal drumming and your whatever drumming, and you'll find that you're not a metal drummer, you're just a good drummer. And it's much better, I think, to be a good drummer than the fastest metal drummer or the brutalist heavy rock drummer or something like that. So don't pigeonhole yourself, because it's not going to do you any good in the long run.
That makes a lot of sense. You see many vocalists, instrumentalists who go between genres, and I think it certainly just increases their capacity to perform at a high level.
Well, it changes their repertoire and their perspective on the music, because suddenly you have all this other, all this other musical. These other musical ideas to draw upon when you're expressing yourself in one genre. Well, maybe you can make a fusion of these ideas over here, put it into these ideas over here, and suddenly you've created something that people haven't really heard before. And that's art. That's interesting. That's unique. That's original.
Absolutely. Well, Sean, wrapping up with you today, how can people purchase this new album and hopefully the follow-up album? Or find out more about 7 Year Storm?
Right now, I'm sending everyone to 7yearstorm.bandcamp.com. You can purchase the album digitally as well as order the physical disc. I should be receiving shipment of the physical discs very soon, so those will start shipping out. It is also now on iTunes and should be available on Spotify and other streaming services soon, but the best way to support is definitely Bandcamp.
I certainly encourage our listeners to purchase this album. I have had an advanced copy, and I can tell you I keep listening to it over and over. It fits a lot of different moods, whether you want to bang your head or whether you want to mellow out. It really fits with a lot of different emotions and feelings. Some great music to listen to. Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate getting to talk with you, and best of luck in the upcoming year as you continue to promote this album.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it.